Welcome, everybody, to the first of 3 sets of webinars that we are hoping to deliver between now and the end of the year for the Evidence Synthesis Infrastructure Collaborative. This is following the planning process, and the purpose of these meetings are really just to keep the community abreast of updates as we become aware of them. The first of the series is really aimed at following up on what we did during the planning process and giving you an update on the roadmap and other products that came out of that process. So if we can go to the next slide. Whoop, we are using Wordly for these webinars, and so if you would like to use Wordly, you can scan the QR code on your phone and select your language, and then just follow the link in the Zoom session. Next slide, please. So just a quick overview of what we hope to cover today. We are going to just do a quick overview of the process that we followed during the planning process. We're going to give you an update on the Cape Town Consensus Charter and also an update on the ESIC roadmap, which is now got a second version published on the website, and let you know about next steps. So I'm just going to give a quick process overview. How did we get to this point? Many of you were either involved in this process directly, or hopefully you have followed it closely. But we spent 6 months undertaking a really robust planning process, working across 5 working groups and a planning group on governance to identify solutions to reimagine the way we deliver evidence synthesis. You can see on the left of this screen the working groups that were involved included demand-side engagement, data sharing and reusing, safe and responsible use of AI, methods and process innovation, and capacity sharing. And this culminated in the development of a roadmap that was presented at an historic meeting in Cape Town, where we stress tested those solutions. Next slide. For the next piece, I'm going to hand over to Lawrence to talk about the Consensus Charter and where we're up to. Thanks, Lawrence.
Thanks so much, Zoe. And yeah, thanks for taking us back to, as I said, the historic meeting. I think on previous webinars, we spoke about the excitement building up to Cape Town, and it's quite hard to believe that it's almost 2 months ago that we came together. I'll talk a little bit about the charter, but first up, a really big thank you to all of those who have commented on it. Your feedback has been really helpful in improving the charter. We were overwhelmed with submissions, which is a really good sign. And it has made the document a much stronger version. And we're super excited that we have it on the website now. So if you go to the ESIC website and you have a look for the charter, you should be able to find it there. So with this really nice body of submissions, we were of course not able to go through every single comment and implement it one for one. So just as a quick heads up, we have essentially grouped for this particular purpose the comments in 2 themes. So the first one is around the improvements we've made to link the charter closer to the roadmap. So to make it quite clear where you can find what type of information and where there's more detailed information in the roadmap and how that links to the charter. So kind of this flow from roadmap to charter we've strengthened in the current version. And linked to that, we've also invested in making sure the language is more consistent, again, starting from the roadmap and then feeding into the charter. So what do we mean by evidence intermediaries? Making sure that there's a clear explanation of the various groups that play this role of evidence intermediaries, for example. So that's just as a very broad heads up of the changes we've made. If you're wondering a little bit, well, what is this charter all about and how it was developed, we have on the next slide just a quick overview for you. But essentially, the charter presents a point in time where in Cape Town we came together and we stress tested the roadmap with the 200 delegates in Cape Town. And the charter is a document of that stress testing. So it was jointly developed by those 200 colleagues in Cape Town. And then through constant feedback, we have the current version 2. So essentially, it was a really, really, really rapid synthesis without any AI involvement, I should say, where at the end of each day, we had facilitators taking the delegate through the discussions of the day, drawing out themes, bringing that back to plenary, and making sure on a daily basis we send a summary of the charter and building it iteratively. And then after the event, send the full charter around on emails for comments from the attendees in Cape Town. And thank you so much again for that feedback received. It's really appreciated. It took us a little bit longer to come back to you, which reflects the number of submissions. But yeah, we're quite excited. And then just broadly, what are kind of the key elements that the charter, I guess, elevated? So none of this is outside of the roadmap. You'll find the same in the roadmap. But I think this charter particularly elevated 5 key points. So the first one is around equity and how we commit to a shift in power to the Global South. So various different mechanisms like collaboration, leadership, so many different elements on how we can center equity. The second link to that is how we need to make sure we pay attention to neglected sectors, neglected interest holders in the broader evidence ecosystem. And through ESIC gives them a chance to come to the table and build a better infrastructure that works for everybody. The third element, which was really a moment of excitement in Cape Town in particular, was around the role of evidence intermediaries and the many groups that can function as intermediaries. So ESIC centers those quite a bit in the roadmap and in the charter, and there was lots of excitement for that. But also of the intermediaries in the room in Cape Town, they were equally excited about what ESIC means for them. So a really nice way of coming together from both sides. Linked to that point, the charter elevates how we work with the demand side, with the evidence users, how to stimulate requests and anticipate needs, and the many different ways in which AI can help make those processes more faster, more relevant, more equitable. But importantly, a key point on the AI, that we need to balance rigor with speed. And this is a communication issue sometimes, where we do know where we have advantages through AI, but at the same time, where sometimes we're not clear is our competition and how do we come together. So committing to more simple language, communicating with more humility, learning with each other to make sure we have this balance between rigor and speed right. And then lastly, that was a particular point in time, we had the anniversaries of the South African Freedom Charter and the UN Charter, who inspired us and guided us through those 3 days. And that was a really nice frame to have. So yeah, that was a quick summary of the charter. Please do have a look on the website. We look back with lovely memories of Cape Town. And I think now I'm handing over to Will to talk a little bit more through the roadmap.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. Really exciting to be drawn back to everything we did together over those days. I'm going to, many of you will have seen the roadmap before. It's not a new document. I'm going to briefly talk you through version 2 of the roadmap, which is the product, firstly, of picking up some of the input into version 1 that we didn't have time for, and a very tight time scale between the groups finishing their work and version 1 coming out, I think, days rather than weeks later. And picking up feedback from the Cape Town process itself and from all the different groups and interest holders that have fed into this process. We tried to do justice to all of that. And you'll see, I think, 3 things. One is it got much longer because there was a lot of feedback. The second is, therefore, we thought it was really important to try and make that document manageable for people who were just coming to the process for the first time. So now there is a full version of our roadmap, which really tries to do justice to the full richness of all of that feedback, and a concise version of the roadmap, which is 11 pages long, which we think is within the attention span of people for whom evidence synthesis is not their main focus, but who may have a really important role to play in making ESIC happen or supporting ESIC happening. And as you will see in this presentation, the team, I can't claim any credit for this, but have done some wonderful work summing up the roadmap visually so that you can actually see what we're getting at in just one page now. You can see that on the screen in front of you. So those were kind of key changes in how we're putting things across. One of the biggest pieces of feedback, which you'll again see as we go through this, is that people wanted to hear more about next steps. We have been clear in version 1 on the roadmap of here's a big list of numbers, but we haven't really said step by step what happens next. Now, it's fair to say that some of that is still being worked out, but version 2 of the roadmap tries to be a bit clearer about how we will progress incrementally, iteratively, building towards the big exciting visions that have been set out as to what the full infrastructure should look like by the groups and how that would turn into real world impact over these 5 steps. So I'll just quickly take you through the 5 steps and we can come through. So next slide, please. There we go. Okay, well, here's the overview. Let's do that. Starting foundationally, most importantly, with the Show Me the Evidence features. I'll highlight the 2 we usually highlight. One is harmonizing efforts globally. That's the H in Show Me. And the second is equity and efficiency in everything we do. And just as Lawrence emphasized it in the charter, we really wanted to bring out the importance of equity at every stage. In version 2 of a roadmap, we've tried to do that as well and make sure that in each step, the commitment to equity and what that looks like in practice is being followed through and is clearly there. And the richer sense of equity that came out in the Cape Town meeting, some of the aspects of equity that hadn't been considered as deeply or formalized into the ESIC process earlier on. We did formalize many forms of equity, from representation from around the world, gender, equity, career stage, different sectors, and so on. But for example, disability inclusion wasn't part of our formal criteria for the planning process. That's something we've tried to feature more in version 2 of the roadmap. Then we have these 5 steps, which is essentially in a concise form a theory of change, which is if we build effective user-centered evidence synthesis infrastructure, we will be able to make user-centered evidence synthesis the norm, the availability of that normal for people. And then if we work with intermediaries who support and have relationships with decision makers, we will be able to ensure that more people start using or keep using actionable insights from that evidence synthesis that are generated both rigorously and quickly. And that in turn will enable better informed decisions to improve people's lives and do that cost effectively. That's the argument in a nutshell. And over the next few slides, we'll just dive into that in a little more depth. So next slide, please. Step 1, building a user-centered infrastructure to serve everyone. This is the bit that if you are one of the people who generously served on the working groups and planning groups, you have spent a lot of time thinking about. We talked about 5 aspects of evidence synthesis infrastructure: demand-side engagement, AI, data, method and process innovation, and capacity sharing. The group set out 39 recommendations in each of those areas of recommended solutions, I should say, to strengthen evidence synthesis infrastructure to make it capable of delivering those actionable insights rigorously, quickly, and in a way that will really work for users. Those are summarized in the concise version of the roadmap on just 1 page. So a very high level overview. The detail is reflected in the full version of the roadmap, and of course that links to the stage 4 reports from each group that go into much greater depth. But that's the infrastructure we talked about in those 5 areas. Step 2, please. Making user-centered evidence synthesis the norm. There are 3 aspects of this. The first one is one we didn't bring out in version 1 of the roadmap so strongly: delivering for users suites of living evidence synthesis. So that's going to be one of the major initiatives of ESIC to start with, is delivering suites of living evidence synthesis. working with the Global SDG Synthesis Coalition to prioritize candidates for doing that in relation to the SDGs, and input from other specialists on priorities like climate action, global health, and other important priorities, either for the world as a whole or for specific parts of the world, identifying those and then delivering suites of living evidence synthesis around them. And of course, building actual evidence synthesis will help build the infrastructure and vice versa. So step 1 and step 2 will build together. Secondly, we're going to create products that compete effectively for users' time and attention. Evidence synthesis is an extraordinarily special thing because it really recognizes that some evidence is very high quality and very valuable, and some of what purports to be evidence is not actually high quality, cannot be relied upon, can actually be untrustworthy. And it distinguishes that, which in a contested information environment like we have these days is actually a really valuable thing. We need to show the value of that to lots of different kinds of users, communicate it clearly in products that people want to use, not just PDFs, but things that are friendly for different kinds of users, integrate where people want to find information. And thirdly, we need to create and keep new users. If we're going to be a genuinely equitable community serving the whole world, then there are billions of people who are currently not served well or often at all by evidence synthesis. It's a massive opportunity to grow the number of people we are serving. Similarly, if we expand the coverage of evidence synthesis into many other topic areas, it will be possible to serve more people and more important decisions that affect their lives. And thirdly, if we integrate into the sources of information people use on a day-to-day basis, then again, we can bring that user-centered evidence synthesis to more people. But to do that, we need step 3, which is working with intermediaries who support decision makers. We need to give people who have day-to-day relationships with decision makers, whether that is in government or in our day-to-day lives as individuals, actionable insights, practical, useful information that helps make those decisions. And we need to give those intermediaries open, reusable data that is quality assured, that helps them give more authoritative responses in less time. And I refer to intermediaries as them, but of course I recognize that some people are both producers of evidence synthesis and intermediaries who work directly with users and users of evidence synthesis themselves. These are roles people play, not necessarily the people or organizations themselves. But it's critical that we are not trying to do everything ourselves, but we're working with the people who have the relationships, the access to audiences. And we talked about a whole range of intermediaries, evidence support units who support advisory and decision-making processes, evidence support units who support learning and improvement processes, particularly in professions and practitioner groups, science advisors, citizen-led and citizen-serving NGOs, international bodies, researchers, and other evidence communities. Over the course of the ESIC process, we've engaged with a very wide range of intermediaries to stress test whether we are putting together something that will help them do their jobs, and we have good evidence that we are. So step 4, ensure more people, and there we go. That's the list of intermediaries if we hop onto that, that's the list of intermediaries in very broad categories that we've been engaging with. And many of these were represented in the Cape Town meeting. So version 2 of the roadmap is very much taking on board discussions about each individual community that were had at Cape Town and in other bilateral conversations. So step 4, please. Ensuring more people keep using or start using actionable insights generated with rigor or speed. Over the course of the process, we've thought about 4 big buckets of users: government policymakers, leaders of organizations, including in NGOs and businesses, professionals and other practitioners and service providers, and finally citizens, which means all of us. In the roadmap, we tried to set out how ESIC will help decision makers in each of these areas. And I won't spoil the surprises. You can read that for yourself for ones that are most relevant for you. But in version 2 of the roadmap, we've also started talking much more explicitly about the crucial way this will support the work of funders, and in particular funders of research and evidence, because evidence synthesis has a unique role to play in helping research and evidence funders put their research budgets where they can make the most difference. And we've tried to bring that out more explicitly in version 2 of the roadmap. And that brings us on finally to step 5. How are we actually going to make a difference? you'll see in the roadmap a little timeline. In 1 year, we want to see the early impacts being visible, even while we're laying the foundations of that new infrastructure. We want to see execution of evidence synthesis led by the Global South in a distributed system with growing leadership capacity across countries of the Global South. We want to see actionable insights being available from the ESIC work by standing up rapid reviews that are the first step towards living evidence synthesis on 100 of the biggest societal challenges of our time. And we want to see this infrastructure being built. We want to see the relationships between producers and intermediaries and users all starting to come together in those feedback loops, helping us to begin the process of continuous improvement. By year 2, we want to see those impacts much more widely distributed and that infrastructure much more ready to go. The leadership accelerating in a distributed system across the Global South. Actionable insights available there, part of our standard ways of working in 100 key societal challenges of our time. The costs of evidence synthesis dropping, and the complexity and importance of the questions we can address growing, because we have the infrastructure of the support we need to do that. And in 5 years, we want to see a fully transformed evidence synthesis ecosystem, which is able to pivot quickly to emerging priorities as a cornerstone of the global evidence architecture. And if that sounds ambitious, yes, it is. We're proud that this is an ambitious roadmap that so many of us have contributed to. And so the next question is, what are we going to do about it? Next slide, please. We have to start now. We already have momentum. We gained immediate momentum after the initial announcement about ESIC made by Wellcome at the United Nations General Assembly meeting last year. We had hundreds, possibly thousands, certainly hundreds of people involved in one way or another in this planning process, producing the first version of this roadmap, and through the Cape Town consensus process, stress testing that, refining that version, and producing version 2. We already have people making practical commitments to how we deliver this infrastructure. So act now. We really invite you to think about what you can do to move this agenda forward, and to start talking publicly about that and sharing your thinking about that. Express your support for the Cape Town Charter. Think about your plans in the light of how this collective impact approach that we are all committed to can achieve more together than any of us can achieve individually. Start small. We recognize that big roadmaps sound wonderful, but actually the practical route towards it is one step at a time. We want to look at how we can build minimum viable products and then incrementally improve them over time. So rather than engage in a kind of 5-year plan to get somewhere wonderful in 5 years, we're really focused on where could we be in 3 months or 6 months or 9 months, and how can that gradually improve over time. And making sure that we continue and build on the feedback loops and the constant open ways of working that we've started to establish during the planning process. And then finally, think big. You know, we are looking to do real systematic changes in how we work together. And we want this big, ambitious roadmap to be a guiding path as we iterate towards those bigger systems changes. We know, for example, that the SDGs are at risk of failing the Sustainable Development Goals, and that means real impacts on billions of people's lives. We believe, in fact, we know that evidence synthesis is capable of making a really important difference to our ability to cost effectively achieve the SDGs and to achieve many other important social goals and to make people's lives better around the world. We want to keep that constantly in mind. This is not a technical project to do a technical thing better. It is a project with the potential to make people's lives better all around the world. That is the goal we will stay focused on. That is the big picture, and it is worth putting all this effort in for. So that's what the roadmap says. It's the roadmap we collectively came up with. Everyone who's been involved will find a bit of it that probably has their fingerprints on it, and a bit of it that, like, that's definitely somebody else's fingerprints, and that's one of his strengths. This is a collective impact approach. Just want to thank Andrea and Kerry, the other 2 members of the writing team, who at this time of day are out of time zone. but they did an amazing job pulling together all of this input, and we hope we've adequately reflected everybody's thoughts and everything that went into this process. And I think I'm handing over to Carla now.
Thank you very much, Zoe, Lawrence, and Will. As you can see, we have done quite a lot of work after that amazing meeting in Cape Town. I think it's a historical meeting, but it's also a meeting that have demonstrated the passion and have focused us on what is important. And one of the most important thing is actually how we deliver on equity. And we continue to discuss that. We have done quite a lot of work throughout this process to involve people from different regions, sector, language, gender, career stage. We have not been as good as we should in certain areas, for example, people with disability, but we're really focusing on creating the momentum for this to be a global shift, and that involves everyone, that we can really see leadership, the leadership that we have at the moment in the Global South being really upscale and bring their perspectives and lead on this process. And we've been working a number of other activities for the past 2 months to actually deliver on that. Next slide, please. For example, we have, oh, sorry, I have made a mistake. So the call to action, I thought that Will had spoken about that. But basically, what is very important for us, apart from acting now, start small and think big, is to really commit to a collective impact, to really commit to learn and share from each other, equity, and to support the Cape Town Charter that we all committed to. So we are working with our interest holders and with all the people that have involved, and we ask you to also take a moment to see what you can do. We mentioned it on the beginning, where it's clear that we are expecting to hear from the Wellcome Trust and from other funders, but there is a lot of things that we can do in our organizations as a citizen or where we work to be able to deliver on this collective impact. Next slide, please. And you see that a lot of other type of work are really being trying to build the stepstones for all of this. One of these is 2 members of the Monitoring, Evaluation and Learning Planning Group, Fred and Camila, have been tasked to put together the learns from the Cape Town meeting and from the roadmap to create the final version of the theory of change for this part of the process. We also, Laura Boeira from Brazil has, from the beginning of this process, created a mentorship program for early and mid-careers, and this culminated with a workshop delivered by Dr. Hoshni Moniram, and this workshop was actually funded by donations from 2 co-chairs of the process that donated their stipend to generate, and we're very grateful for that. So we are now working on what are the next steps for early and mid-career, and we're going to put together for the next newsletter a report that tells you what we've done and what we think are the next steps. Equally important, we're putting together a companion paper that sets out what we mean in ESIC by equity, and how we actually have concrete achievements to demonstrate our commitment to a genuine power shift towards the global South. Members of the working groups and the planning group, secretariat, and citizens have all been involved on delivering manuscripts, and you'll see a series of these manuscripts. We hope that the next newsletter will provide you a bit more of information and what are the expectations in terms of time to deliver these manuscripts. We are committed to do a monthly newsletter. As Zoe mentioned in the beginning, we want to keep you up to date, and we want to be able to use a mechanism to inform all of you. And we also committed until the end of the year to create bi-monthly webinars. Please reach out to us or visit the website if you want more information about that. The website now provides you an opportunity to get all these final reports translated in 5 or 6 languages. I think it's 6, actually 5 plus Portuguese, the 5 UN language plus Portuguese, what I'm very grateful for. And we also created a YouTube channel with all the videos, especially the content that was produced during the Cape Town meeting. So as you can see, we continue to work, and we're really trying to make sure that we do find ways to make sure that you are informed and you know what to expect from the next steps. Next slide, please, and I think it's the last one. Obviously, if you have any questions, you can ask us, but you can also reach out through the website. We'll be putting together the newsletter with information. And if you have any suggestions or anything you want to see on these newsletters, we also want to hear from you. Thank you very much. And thank you to my colleagues for the presentation today.